You walk into any pet store, and there they are, rows upon rows of tiny plastic cups, each containing a fish that looks like it was painted by an artist who had too many colors on their palette. The water barely covers their fins. They sit motionless, maybe flaring briefly when you approach. The label says they can live in these cups, that they don't need much space, that they breathe air anyway. The employee tells you they live in puddles in the wild, that a bowl on your desk would be perfect. Everything about this scene is wrong. What if I told you that these same fish, in their native Thailand, patrol territories of up to 3 square feet? What if I told you that the puddles they supposedly live in are actually vast networks of shallow waters that can stretch for miles? What if I told you that with proper care, that fish in the cup could live for 5, 7, even 10 years, instead of the few months most survive? The Betta splendens, what we call the Siamese fighting fish, or simply the Betta, might be the most misunderstood pet in the world. And today, we're going to change that. This isn't just about keeping a fish alive. This is about understanding one of nature's most remarkable evolutionary adaptations, appreciating centuries of selective breeding that rival any dog breed development, and learning to provide care that transforms a surviving pet into a thriving companion. Whether you're a seasoned aquarist, a biology student, or someone who just walked past those cups and wondered what the real story is, this documentary will give you everything you need to know about keeping betta fish the right way. The story of the betta begins not in a pet store, but in the warm, shallow waters of Southeast Asia. Travel with me to the floodplains of central Thailand, to the Mekong and Chao Phraya River basins, where the morning sun beats down on endless expanses of rice paddies. The water here is shallow, sometimes only a few inches deep, but it stretches to the horizon. This is the true native habitat of Betta splendens, and understanding it is key to understanding everything about these remarkable fish. During the monsoon season, these paddies flood and connect, creating vast aquatic highways where wild bettas swim freely, establishing territories, hunting for mosquito larvae and small crustaceans, and yes, occasionally encountering rivals. The water temperature fluctuates dramatically from as low as 59 degrees Fahrenheit during cool nights to over 100 degrees in the blazing afternoon sun. The pH swings from slightly acidic to highly alkaline. Oxygen levels plummet as organic matter decomposes in the heat. Any ordinary fish would perish in these conditions, but bettas aren't ordinary fish. Evolution equipped these fish with something extraordinary, a labyrinth organ. This isn't just a backup breathing system, it's a marvel of adaptation that develops as the fish matures. Tiny blood vessels wind through bony plates in their heads, creating a maze-like structure that can extract oxygen directly from air. When you see a betta rise to the surface and gulp, they're not just getting a breath. They're using an organ so efficient that they can survive out of water for short periods as long as they stay moist. This adaptation didn't evolve so they could live in cups, though. It evolved so they could survive the dry season. When the rains stop and the paddies begin to dry, bettas don't just wait to die in shrinking puddles as the myth suggests. Wild bettas are jumpers. They can propel themselves from one water body to another, seeking deeper pools and new territories. Those that end up temporarily isolated don't resign themselves to fate. They're waiting, conserving energy, ready to move when opportunity presents itself. The image of a betta happily living its entire life in a hoofprint or puddle, that's not survival. That's a death sentence they're desperately trying to escape. The wild betta looks nothing like its domestic cousin. Where pet store bettas explode with color and flowing fins, wild bettas are subtle creatures of olive, brown, and muted green, with short, functional fins and a streamlined body built for navigating dense vegetation. Males might show a hint of blue or red iridescence when breeding or fighting, but they're masters of camouflage, not showmanship. They patrol territories among the roots of emergent plants, through forests of stems where water lilies and other vegetation create a complex three-dimensional maze. Each male claims about 1 square meter of space that's nearly 11 square feet, which they defend vigorously during breeding season. The transformation from these modest wild fish to the living jewels we know today began over 1,000 years ago. Thai children would catch bettas from the rice fields, keeping them in clay jars and staging contests. But here's what's crucial to understand. These weren't fights to the death. They were tests of bravery, more like flaring contests where the first fish to retreat lost. The matches might last minutes or hours, but death was rare. It was about dominance, not destruction. By the mid-1800s, betta keeping had become so popular that the king of Thailand began licensing and taxing betta fights. The fish bred for these contests weren't selected for beauty, but for stamina and aggression. They were stockier, tougher, and more willing to display than their wild ancestors. Then, in the late 1800s, everything changed. The king of Thailand gifted several bettas to a Danish physician who brought them to Europe. From there, they spread across the Western world, and selective breeding took a completely different direction. Instead of aggression and stamina, breeders began selecting for color and fin development. The discovery that bettas could carry multiple color genes that expressed differently in each generation opened up possibilities that seemed endless. Red bettas were crossed with blues to create purples. Yellows were developed through careful selection of non-red genes. The cellophane trait was isolated to create transparent fins. Metallics were bred to shine like hammered copper or steel. Each new color was a genetic puzzle, solved through patience and countless generations of selective breeding. The fins underwent even more dramatic changes. The short, practical fins of wild bettas grew longer with each generation. Veil tails cascaded like silk curtains. Crown tails developed rays that extended beyond the webbing like a punk rock mohawk. Half moons spread their tails to a perfect 180-degree semicircle. Delta tails, super deltas, rose tails, feather tails. Each variety pushed the boundaries of what these fish could become. Some breeders went further, creating double tails with split caudal fins, or elephant ear bettas with pectoral fins so large they look like they're wearing ball gowns. But this transformation came with a cost. Those flowing fins that make bettas so beautiful also make them vulnerable. They can't swim as efficiently as their wild ancestors. The elaborate finnage tears easily and requires pristine water conditions to heal. Some varieties, like rose tails and feather tails, have fins so heavy they struggle to swim at all. The dragon scale varieties, with their thick metallic scales, often develop diamond eye, a condition where scales grow over their eyes, causing blindness. The marble gene, which creates stunning color-changing patterns, can be unstable, causing bettas to completely transform their appearance over their lifetime. Today's pet betta is as far removed from its wild ancestor as a pug is from a wolf. They're living art, created through human intervention and selective pressure. But underneath all that breeding, the wild betta still exists. They still build bubble nests. They still defend territories. They still breathe air and jump and fight. Understanding where they came from, really understanding it, not just repeating pet store myths, is the first step to providing them with the care they deserve. When you look at a betta fish, what you're really seeing is a masterpiece of genetic manipulation that would make any scientist envious. Every color, every pattern, every fin shape is the result of generations of careful selection, lucky mutations, and an understanding of genetics that has evolved from simple observation to complex scientific study. The genetics of betta fish coloration alone could fill textbooks, but let's explore how these living kaleidoscopes actually work. Think of each betta scale as a tiny canvas with 4 distinct layers of paint. At the bottom is the yellow layer, containing xanthophores that produce yellows and oranges. Above that sits the black layer with melanophores creating dark pigments. Then comes the red layer with erythrophores. And finally, on top, the iridescent layer containing iridophores that produce blues, greens, and metallic sheens. What color you see depends on which layers are present, which are absent, and how they interact with light. It's not mixing paint, it's more like stacking sheets of colored glass. Want a solid red betta? You need strong red pigmentation, but minimal black and iridescent layers interfering with it. Want blue? You need the iridescent layer producing blue wavelengths while suppressing the red and yellow beneath. Want yellow? You have to eliminate the top 3 layers entirely, letting only that bottom yellow layer shine through. This is why true yellow bettas were so difficult to develop, and why they often show unwanted red or blue washes. It's incredibly hard to completely suppress 3 layers of pigmentation while maintaining just 1. The genetics get even more complex when we consider that these aren't simple dominant and recessive traits like you learned in high school biology. Betta colors involve multiple genes interacting in ways we're still discovering. Take the marble gene, for instance. This partially dominant gene does not just create a pattern, it creates a fish that can completely change its appearance over its lifetime. A marble betta might start out solid blue, develop white patches at 6 months, be half red by a year, and end up looking completely different at 2 years old. The gene causes color cells to migrate and change, creating living, dynamic art that never stops evolving. The development of specific colors often took decades of work. The creation of the true orange betta, for example, required breeders to first develop the non-red gene, which eliminates red pigmentation, then carefully select for enhanced yellow pigmentation that appeared orange under certain lighting. But maintaining this color proved challenging. Orange bettas often fade or develop red spots as they age because the non-red gene isn't always stable. Similarly, developing the black orchid variety, a true black betta with colored streaks between the fin rays, required eliminating the iridescent layer completely while maintaining deep melanin production, something that often results in fish that are prone to tumors and have shorter lifespans. Copper bettas presented another challenge entirely. The copper coloration isn't actually a color at all. It's a type of iridescence that reflects light in a way that appears metallic. Developing stable copper lines required understanding how the spread iridescence gene worked, how it interacted with the metallic gene, and how to prevent it from washing out other desired colors. The result is fish that literally shine like polished metal, but the genetic combination often comes with reduced fertility and increased sensitivity to water conditions. The development of tail types followed a different but equally fascinating path. Each tail type began with a mutation, a genetic accident that breeders recognized as desirable. The half-moon tail, that perfect 180-degree spread that's become the show standard, took decades to perfect. Early attempts produced fish with good spread but poor ray strength, causing the tails to collapse. Others had strong rays but couldn't achieve the spread. It was until breeders began understanding that multiple genes controlled different aspects of tail development. Ray multiplication, ray strength, membrane thickness, branching patterns, that consistent half-moons became possible. Crown tails emerged from a mutation that caused the rays to extend beyond the tail membrane. But the early crown tails were messy, with uneven ray extensions and poor membrane reduction. Years of selective breeding created the modern crown tail with uniform ray extensions, proper spacing, and the distinctive crown-like appearance. But this came with trade-offs. Crown tails are more prone to fin damage, their extended rays are vulnerable to bacterial infections, and the gene that creates the crown effect can cause issues with other fins, leading to deformed ventrals or pectorals. The double tail gene is particularly interesting because it doesn't just affect the tail, it changes the entire body structure of the fish. Double-tail bettas have shorter, broader bodies to accommodate the split caudal fin. They have wider dorsals that mirror the anal fin. But the gene is lethal when homozygous in many lines, meaning breeding two double tails together often results in high fry mortality. Many breeders use single-tail bettas that carry the double-tail gene to produce show-quality fish while avoiding the lethal combinations. Perhaps the most controversial development in recent years has been the creation of extreme varieties that push the boundaries of what's possible. Rosetail and feathertail bettas have so much finnage that the tail rays branch and rebranch, creating a ruffled appearance like rose petals. They're stunning to look at, but many can barely swim. Their heavy fins drag them down, leading to stress, lethargy, and shortened lifespans. The Dumbo or elephant ear varieties, with their massively enlarged pectoral fins, face similar challenges. While some individuals manage well, others struggle with the weight and drag of their oversized fins. Dragon scale bettas, with their thick metallic scales that resemble armor plating, often develop diamond eye as they age. The same gene that creates those beautiful scales can cause them to grow over the eyes, resulting in partial or complete blindness. Some lines are more prone to this than others, and ethical breeders work to develop dragon scales with reduced risk of diamond eye, but it remains a significant welfare concern in the variety. The genetics of aggression have also been studied, though less extensively than physical traits. Research has identified multiple genes associated with aggressive behavior, including genes related to neural development and neurotransmitter production. Interestingly, studies have found that blue males tend to be more aggressive than red males, suggesting that color genes and behavioral genes might be linked in ways we don't fully understand. This has implications for breeding. as selecting for certain colors might inadvertently select for behavioral traits as well. Modern betta breeding has moved beyond simple visual selection. Some breeders now use genetic testing to identify carriers of recessive traits, predict offspring outcomes, and avoid lethal combinations. The discovery that the sex determination system in bettas is more complex than simple XXXY, involving multiple genes and environmental factors, has helped explain why some spawns produce skewed sex ratios and has allowed breeders to better predict and control offspring sex. The International Betta Congress maintains standards for show bettas, defining ideal proportions, fin shapes, and color patterns for each variety. But these standards are constantly evolving as new varieties emerge. The recent development of alien bettas, with their wild-type body shape but domestic coloration, represents a return to appreciation for the natural form. The creation of giant bettas, which can reach 4 inches in body length, required identifying and selectively breeding individuals with genes for increased growth hormone production. Understanding betta genetics isn't just academic, it has practical implications for every keeper. When you buy that beautiful marble betta, you need to understand that its colors will change. When you choose a dragon scale, you should know about the diamond eye risk. When you fall in love with a rosetail, you need to be prepared for a fish that might need special accommodations to thrive. Every variety comes with its own genetic package, beauty, and potential problems wrapped in the same DNA. The single biggest myth in the aquarium hobby is that bettas can thrive in tiny containers because they live in puddles in the wild. We've already debunked the puddle myth, but now let's talk about what bettas actually need to thrive in captivity. The difference between a betta that survives and one that thrives comes down to understanding and providing for their environmental needs. And those needs are far more complex than a bowl on a desk. Let's start with space. The absolute minimum tank size for a single betta is 2.5 gallons. But that's like saying the minimum apartment size for a human is a prison cell. Yes, you can survive in it, but you're not living. 5 gallons should be considered the true minimum, with 10 gallons being ideal for a single betta. Why does size matter so much? It's not just about swimming space, though bettas do patrol territories much larger than most people realize. It's about water stability. Water chemistry is everything in aquarium keeping, and smaller volumes of water are inherently unstable. Temperature fluctuates more rapidly, toxins accumulate faster, pH swings more dramatically. In a 1-gallon bowl, the ammonia from a single uneaten pellet can create toxic conditions within hours. In a 10-gallon tank, that same pellet is diluted and processed by beneficial bacteria before it becomes dangerous. The larger the water volume, the more forgiving the environment, and the more margin for error you have as a keeper. Temperature control is absolutely critical for bettas. These are tropical fish that require water between 76 and 81 degrees Fahrenheit, with 78 to 80 being ideal. Below 76 degrees, their metabolism slows, their immune system weakens, and they become susceptible to diseases. They'll survive at 70 degrees, but they're not living. They're enduring. They become lethargic, stop building bubble nests, lose color, and often develop fin rot or fungal infections. The idea that bettas can live at room temperature is only true if your room is consistently tropical. A heater isn't optional, it's essential, and not just any heater. You need an adjustable heater appropriate for your tank size, with a thermostat that maintains stable temperature. Those preset heaters that claim to keep water at 78 degrees often fail, either cooking fish at 85 degrees or leaving them shivering at 70. A good heater should maintain temperature within 1 degree of your setting. Place it near your filter output for even heat distribution, and always use a thermometer to verify the temperature. Don't trust the heater's dial. Filtration is another misunderstood aspect of betta care. Yes, bettas come from still or slow-moving water, and yes, their long fins make swimming in currents difficult. But that doesn't mean they don't need filtration. In the wild, their vast territories and natural bacterial colonies process waste. In an aquarium, we need mechanical and biological filtration to replicate these processes. The key is choosing the right filter with adjustable flow. Sponge filters are ideal for bettas. They provide excellent biological filtration, create minimal current, and can't suck in flowing fins. They're powered by air pumps, which also increase oxygen levels in the water. And no, this doesn't interfere with the betta's labyrinth breathing. They still benefit from dissolved oxygen in the water, using their gills as well as their labyrinth organ. If you prefer a hang-on back or internal filter, choose one with adjustable flow and consider baffling the output with a sponge or decorations to reduce current. The nitrogen cycle is perhaps the most important concept in fish keeping, yet it's often overlooked in betta care because of the persistent myth that bettas are different from other fish. They're not. Like all fish, bettas produce ammonia as waste. In an established tank, beneficial bacteria convert this ammonia to nitrite, then other bacteria convert nitrite to nitrate. Ammonia and nitrite are toxic even in small amounts. Nitrate is less toxic but still harmful in high concentrations. This bacterial colony takes 4 to 6 weeks to establish in a new tank, which is why cycling your tank before adding fish is crucial. Yet walk into any pet store and you'll see bettas sold with bowls and told to customers that they can go home immediately. No mention of cycling, no explanation of ammonia toxicity. The result? Most bettas die within weeks, killed by their own waste in uncycled containers. Fish cycling is possible, but requires daily water changes and careful monitoring. It's stressful for the fish and demanding for the keeper. Fishless cycling, using pure ammonia to establish bacteria before adding fish, is far more humane and reliable. Water parameters beyond temperature matter too. Bettas prefer slightly acidic to neutral water, with pH between 6.5 and 7.5 being ideal. They can adapt to pH outside this range, but extreme values cause stress. More important than hitting a specific pH is maintaining stability. A steady pH of 7.8 is better than a pH that swings between 6.8 and 7.2. General hardness and carbonate hardness affect pH stability and overall fish health. Bettas are adaptable to various hardness levels, but very soft or very hard water can cause problems. The source of your water matters. Tap water in most areas contains chlorine or chloramine to kill bacteria chemicals that are just as deadly to fish as they are to pathogens. Water conditioner isn't optional, it's essential. Choose one that neutralizes both chlorine and chloramine, and consider one that also detoxifies heavy metals. Some keepers use reverse osmosis or distilled water, but these lack essential minerals and must be remineralized before use. Well water can work but should be tested for agricultural runoff, heavy metals, and other contaminants. Tank setup goes beyond just water. Substrate choice affects both aesthetics and water chemistry. Gravel works but can trap debris. Sand is easier to clean but can compact and create anaerobic pockets. Many keepers prefer aquarium soil for planted tanks, as it provides nutrients for plants and helps stabilize pH. Whatever substrate you choose, you need 1 to 2 inches depth, enough for beneficial bacteria colonization and plant rooting if desired, but not so deep that it becomes a maintenance nightmare. Decorations serve both functional and aesthetic purposes. Bettas need hiding places to feel secure. Caves, driftwood, and plants provide territory markers and retreat spaces. But choose carefully. Sharp edges, rough surfaces, and narrow spaces can damage fins or trap fish. The tissue paper test works well. If a decoration can snag tissue paper, it can tear fins. Silk plants are safer than plastic ones, but live plants are best. They improve water quality, provide natural hiding spots, and create a more authentic environment. Live plants deserve special mention. Java fern, Anubias, and Java moss are nearly indestructible and thrive in betta tanks. Amazon swords, cryptocorynes, and water sprite provide excellent coverage. Floating plants like duckweed, salvinia, or water lettuce create shade and security while providing anchor points for bubble nests. Bettas often rest on broad leaves near the surface, using plants like natural hammocks. The tannins released by Indian almond leaves and driftwood have antimicrobial properties and create blackwater conditions that many bettas prefer. Lighting affects both fish and plants. Bettas don't require special lighting, but they do need a regular day-night cycle. 8 to 10 hours of light followed by darkness helps maintain their circadian rhythm. Too much light encourages algae growth, too little prevents plant growth. LED lights are energy efficient and don't add heat to the tank. Some keepers use timers to maintain consistent lighting schedules, reducing stress and promoting natural behaviors. Tank placement matters more than most people realize. Avoid windows where direct sunlight can overheat the water and trigger algae blooms. Keep tanks away from air conditioning vents, radiators, and doors that might cause temperature fluctuations. High traffic areas can stress bettas with constant movement and vibrations. The ideal location is quiet, climate-controlled, and easily accessible for maintenance. In the wild, a betta's day revolves around hunting. They're micro-predators, stalking mosquito larvae, daphnia, bloodworms, and any small invertebrate unlucky enough to enter their territory. They examine every surface, peer into every crevice, always searching for that next meal. This hunting behavior isn't just about nutrition. It's mental stimulation, exercise, and purpose rolled into one. In captivity, we reduce this complex behavior to dropping a few pellets into the tank once a day. No wonder so many bettas seem bored. Understanding what bettas eat in nature helps us understand what they need in captivity. They're carnivores, requiring a diet high in protein and relatively low in plant matter. Their upturned mouths are designed for surface feeding, snatching insects that land on the water. Their stomachs are tiny, about the size of their eyeball, adapted for frequent small meals rather than large feedings. Their digestive systems are short, designed to process animal proteins quickly. Everything about their anatomy screams carnivore, yet many commercial betta foods are packed with fillers like wheat, corn, and soy. The pet food industry has made significant improvements in betta nutrition over the past decade, but reading labels remains crucial. The first ingredient should always be a protein source: fish meal, shrimp meal, or whole fish. Avoid foods where the first ingredients are wheat flour, cornmeal, or other grains. These fillers provide little nutritional value for bettas and can cause digestive issues. The protein content should be at least 40%, with fat content around 10%. Higher protein levels are acceptable, but excessive fat can lead to obesity and fatty liver disease. Pellets have become the standard betta food, and high-quality pellets can provide complete nutrition. But not all pellets are created equal. Size matters. Pellets should be small enough for your betta to swallow easily, but large enough that they don't dissolve immediately. Floating pellets work well for most bettas, allowing them to feed naturally at the surface. Sinking pellets can work for bottom-feeding bettas, but uneaten food can foul the water more quickly. The best approach is often a variety, floating pellets as a staple with other foods for variety and enrichment. Freeze-dried foods offer convenience with better nutrition than many pellets. Bloodworms, brine shrimp, daphnia, and tubifex worms are commonly available freeze-dried. These foods retain much of their nutritional value while being shelf-stable and disease-free. However, they should be rehydrated before feeding. Dry, freeze-dried foods can expand in the stomach, causing bloating and constipation. Soak them in tank water for a few minutes before feeding, and watch your betta attack them with enthusiasm rarely seen with pellets. Frozen foods take nutrition a step further. Flash frozen bloodworms, brine shrimp, mysis shrimp, and daphnia provide nutrition closest to what bettas would eat in the wild. The freezing process preserves vitamins and minerals that are lost in freeze-drying. Frozen foods should be thawed in tank water before feeding. Never add frozen chunks directly to the tank. Many keepers keep a week's worth thawed in the refrigerator, though this reduces nutritional value over time. The gold standard is thawing individual portions for each feeding. Live foods represent the pinnacle of betta nutrition and enrichment. Watching a betta hunt live prey awakens instincts that pellets never could. Brine shrimp are easiest to culture at home, requiring only salt water and a simple hatchery. Baby brine shrimp are perfect for bettas, providing excellent nutrition and exercise. Daphnia, often called water fleas, are another excellent option. They're easy to culture and provide roughage that aids digestion. Mosquito larvae, while seasonal in most areas, are a natural betta food that drives them wild. Just ensure you harvest them before they pupate into mosquitoes. But live foods come with risks. Wild-caught foods can introduce parasites and diseases. Even cultured foods can crash, leaving you without food for your fish. That's why most keepers use live foods as supplements rather than staples. Once or twice a week, live foods provide enrichment and nutrition that processed foods can't match. The hunting behavior alone, the stalking, the strike, the satisfaction of the catch provides mental stimulation that's as important as the nutrition itself. How much to feed is as important as what to feed. Overfeeding is probably the most common mistake in betta keeping. Remember that stomach size. One eyeball, that's roughly 2 to 4 pellets for an adult betta, depending on pellet size. Feed once or twice daily, only what your betta can consume in 2 minutes. Watch your fish's body condition. A healthy betta has a gently rounded belly after feeding that returns to normal by the next feeding. A constantly bloated belly indicates overfeeding. A sunken belly suggests underfeeding or illness. Feeding frequency can vary based on temperature, activity level, and individual metabolism. Young, growing bettas need more frequent feedings, 2 to 3 times daily. Adult bettas do well with once or twice daily feeding. Senior bettas often need less food, but might benefit from smaller, more frequent meals if they have trouble competing with tank mates or seeing food clearly. Some keepers fast their bettas 1 day per week, mimicking natural food scarcity and allowing the digestive system to clear. This can help prevent constipation and obesity. The feeding process itself deserves attention. Bettas are intelligent fish that quickly learn feeding routines. Use this to your advantage. Feed at consistent times to reduce stress and begging behavior. Some keepers train their bettas to eat from their fingers or follow a target stick. This isn't just cute, it's mental stimulation and allows you to monitor food intake precisely. For shy bettas or those in community tanks, consider using a feeding ring to concentrate food in one area, ensuring your betta gets their share. Nutritional problems in bettas often manifest as health issues. Constipation, one of the most common betta ailments, usually results from a diet too high in dry foods or lacking in fiber. The infamous pea treatment, feeding a blanched, deshelled pea, works because it provides fiber that helps clear the digestive system. But prevention is better than treatment. Varying the diet, including foods like daphnia that provide roughage and occasional fasting, prevent most constipation issues. Bloat, often confused with dropsy, can result from overfeeding, poor food quality, or bacterial infections. True dropsy causes scales to protrude like a pine cone and is usually fatal. Simple bloat from overfeeding resolves with fasting and improved feeding practices. Swim bladder disease, where bettas struggle to maintain buoyancy, can result from constipation, overfeeding, or genetic defects. Again, proper feeding prevents most cases. Color enhancement through diet is possible, but often overstated. Foods containing carotenoids, natural pigments found in crustaceans and algae, can enhance red and orange colors. Spirulina can intensify blues and greens, but genetics determines the colors your betta can display. Food just helps them reach their potential. A varied, high-quality diet produces the best colors naturally. Avoid foods marketed specifically for color enhancement, as they often sacrifice overall nutrition for specific pigments. Special dietary needs arise with age, illness, or breeding. Young bettas need higher protein for growth, up to 50% or more. Breeding females need conditioning with high-protein foods to develop eggs. Sick bettas might need easily digestible foods or appetite stimulants like garlic. Senior bettas might need smaller, softer foods if they have dental issues or reduced vision. Always adjust feeding based on individual needs, rather than following rigid rules. There's something magical about walking up to your betta tank and finding a cluster of bubbles at the surface, each one carefully blown and placed by your fish during the night. This bubble nest isn't just a random collection of air pockets. It's an architectural marvel, a statement of maturity and health, and one of the most fascinating reproductive strategies in the fish world. Yet most betta keepers will never see beyond the nest itself to understand the complex breeding behaviors that surround it. The bubble nest is primarily the domain of the male betta, though females have occasionally been observed making rudimentary nests in rare circumstances. The construction process is methodical and deliberate. The male rises to the surface, takes a gulp of air, and processes it through his labyrinth organ. But he doesn't just release a bubble, he coats it with mucus from specialized cells in his mouth, creating a protein film that makes the bubble stronger and longer lasting than any ordinary air bubble. He then carefully places this bubble among others, gradually building a raft that can range from a few scattered bubbles to an elaborate structure several inches across and an inch thick. The location of the nest isn't random either. Males prefer to build under floating objects, leaves, plants, or even the corner of the tank where the water surface is still. This provides protection from above and creates a defined space for the nest. Some males are compulsive builders, maintaining nests constantly regardless of breeding opportunities. Others only build when stimulated by the presence of a female or changes in environmental conditions. Temperature increases, barometric pressure changes, and even the sight of another male can trigger nest building. But why bubbles? Why not lay eggs on plants like many fish, or in caves, or practice mouth brooding like their wild relatives? The answer lies in the betta's natural habitat. In the shallow, warm waters of rice paddies and swamps, oxygen levels at the surface are highest. The bubble nest keeps eggs and newly hatched fry in this oxygen-rich zone during their most vulnerable stages. The bubbles also provide perfect individual chambers. Each egg gets its own bubble, preventing fungal infections from spreading between eggs and ensuring optimal oxygen exposure for each developing embryo. The breeding process itself is a dance as complex as any courtship ritual in nature. It begins long before any eggs are laid, with the conditioning of breeding pairs. In the wild, seasonal changes trigger breeding readiness, increasing temperatures, longer days, and abundant food after monsoon flooding. In captivity, we replicate these conditions by gradually raising temperature to 82 degrees, increasing feeding with protein-rich foods, and sometimes even simulating rainfall with gentle water changes. When a male is ready to breed, his colors intensify to levels that make his normal appearance seem dull by comparison. Reds become blood red, blues turn electric, and iridescent scales shine like mirrors. He becomes hyperactive, patrolling his territory with renewed vigor, flaring at his own reflection, and building or reinforcing his bubble nest with obsessive dedication. He's advertising his fitness, his territory, and his readiness to mate to any female who might be watching. The female's preparation is equally important, but less visible. Inside her body, eggs are developing, requiring significant metabolic resources. A breeding-ready female develops vertical stripes called breeding bars, alternating light and dark bands that signal her receptiveness. Her belly swells with eggs, and a white spot becomes visible behind her ventral fins, the ovipositor through which eggs will be released. She becomes both attracted to and wary of males, approaching their territories but ready to flee if threatened. The introduction of male and female must be carefully managed in captivity. In the wild, females can escape overly aggressive males by leaving their territory. In a tank, she's trapped. Many breeders use a hurricane glass or clear container to allow visual contact without physical interaction. The male will display frantically, spreading every fin to maximum extent, vibrating his body and dancing in front of the female. He alternates between showing off and working on his nest, as if to say, "Look how magnificent I am, and look at this wonderful nursery I've built." The female, if receptive, responds with her own displays. She'll develop stronger breeding bars, angle her body head down in submission, and may even help with nest building by picking up bubbles the male has dropped. This courtship can last hours or days. Eventually, if both fish are ready, the female will approach the nest directly, signaling her readiness to spawn. What happens next is both violent and tender. The male's initial response to the female under his nest is often aggressive. He'll chase, nip, and drive her away repeatedly. This isn't rejection, it's testing. He's ensuring she's committed, that she won't eat the eggs, that she's worthy of his nest. The female must persist, returning again and again despite the aggression, proving her readiness through perseverance. When the male finally accepts the female, the spawning embrace begins. The male curves his body around the female, literally wrapping her in a U shape beneath the bubble nest. They remain motionless for several seconds, almost appearing dead as they sink slowly through the water. During this embrace, the female releases eggs, anywhere from 10 to 40 per embrace, while the male simultaneously releases sperm to fertilize them. The eggs are heavier than water and begin to sink. Then something remarkable happens. The male, sometimes with help from the female, frantically collects every falling egg in his mouth. He doesn't eat them. He carefully carries them to the bubble nest, spitting each egg into an individual bubble. This process repeats, embrace, egg release, collection, for 1 to 4 hours until the female is spent, having released anywhere from 100 to 500 eggs depending on her size and conditioning. Once spawning is complete, the male's behavior changes dramatically. The female, who moments before was his partner, becomes a threat to the nest. He drives her away aggressively, and in captivity, she must be removed to prevent injury or death. In the wild, she would simply leave his territory. The male now begins his vigil, 24 to 36 hours of constant attention to the developing eggs. The male's parental care is extraordinary for a fish. He tends the nest constantly, replacing bubbles as they pop, moving eggs to better positions, and removing any that develop fungus. He fans the nest with his pectoral fins to ensure water circulation. He retrieves any eggs or newly hatched fry that fall from the nest. He doesn't eat during this period, completely focused on his parental duties. It's a level of care that rivals any devoted parent in the animal kingdom. The eggs develop rapidly in the warm water. Within 24 to 48 hours, tiny tails begin protruding from the eggs. These are the fry, still absorbing their yolk sacs, unable to swim horizontally. They hang tail down from the bubbles like living commas, occasionally falling only to be caught and returned by the vigilant father. This stage lasts another 24 to 48 hours. When the fry become free-swimming, starting to move horizontally rather than just vertically, the male's job is complete. In fact, his presence now becomes dangerous, his parental instincts switch off, and the fry become potential food. In captivity, he must be removed. The fry, now on their own, face their first challenge, finding food small enough for their microscopic mouths. Raising betta fry is an art in itself. They need infusoria, microscopic organisms, for their first few days, then graduate to baby brine shrimp and microworms. They grow at different rates, and size sorting becomes necessary to prevent cannibalism. The labyrinth organ doesn't develop for several weeks, so unlike adult bettas, fry are entirely dependent on dissolved oxygen in the water. They need pristine water conditions, frequent feeding, and constant attention. At about 8 to 10 weeks, the differences between males and females become apparent. Males develop longer fins and brighter colors. They begin showing aggression toward each other, requiring separation into individual containers. The jarring process that can result in hundreds of containers for a single spawn. Females can often be kept together longer, but eventually, even they need space as they establish pecking orders. The bubble nest behavior persists even in males who will never breed. It's so deeply ingrained that males build nests in community tanks, in hospital tanks, even in temporary containers during water changes. Some keepers see frequent bubble nests as signs of happiness and health, though this isn't entirely accurate. Stressed males sometimes build nests, and perfectly healthy males might never build them. The behavior is more about instinct and environmental triggers than emotional state. Understanding breeding behavior helps explain many aspects of betta keeping. Why males are aggressive toward each other, they're defending breeding territories. Why they flare at their own reflection, they're warning off a perceived rival. Why they sometimes attack similarly colored fish, they're eliminating breeding competition. Why they build bubble nests even alone, the instinct to reproduce is hardwired into their DNA. Every betta keeper will eventually face illness in their fish. It's not a matter of if, but when. The difference between a minor health issue and a devastating loss often comes down to early recognition, proper diagnosis, and appropriate treatment. But here's what most people don't understand. The vast majority of betta diseases are preventable, caused not by bad luck, but by poor husbandry. Understanding disease prevention and treatment isn't just about saving sick fish. It's about creating conditions where illness rarely occurs. Let's start with a fundamental truth. Healthy fish don't get sick. This sounds simplistic, but it's profound. Fish have immune systems that, when functioning properly, can fight off most pathogens. The bacteria that causes fin rot, the parasites that cause ick, the fungi that create cotton-like growths, these are often present in even the healthiest tanks. They only cause disease when a fish's immune system is compromised. And what compromises a betta's immune system? Stress. Stress in fish isn't just a mental state. It's a physiological condition that suppresses immune function, disrupts normal behaviors, and opens the door to disease. Poor water quality is the primary stressor. Ammonia and nitrite, even in small amounts, cause chemical burns to gills and skin, creating entry points for pathogens while simultaneously suppressing immunity. High nitrates, while less acutely toxic, cause chronic stress that weakens fish over time. Temperature fluctuations force fish to constantly adjust their metabolism. Aggressive tank mates create persistent fear. Inadequate nutrition leaves fish without resources to maintain immunity. Each stressor compounds others, creating a cascade that leads to disease. Fin rot is probably the most common betta ailment, and it perfectly illustrates the stress disease connection. The bacteria that cause fin rot, various species of Pseudomonas and Aeromonas, are ubiquitous in aquarium water. They're on your healthy fish right now, causing no harm. But when stress weakens a betta, these opportunistic bacteria multiply rapidly, producing enzymes that literally dissolve fin tissue. The fins develop ragged edges, often with red or black margins where blood vessels are exposed or tissue is dying. Early-stage fin rot often resolves with improved water quality alone. Daily partial water changes, proper temperature, and stress reduction allow the fish's immune system to fight off the infection naturally. But advanced fin rot, where the infection has reached the body or fins are rapidly deteriorating, requires antibiotics. Medications like erythromycin or tetracycline can be effective, but they also kill beneficial bacteria, potentially crashing your nitrogen cycle. This is why hospital tanks are recommended for treatment. You can medicate aggressively without destroying your main tank's biological filtration. Ick, or white spot disease, is another common problem that demonstrates how stress triggers disease. The parasite Ichthyophthirius multifilius has a complex life cycle that makes it particularly challenging to treat. The visible white spots are actually parasites buried under the skin and gills, feeding on tissue and blood. These spots eventually burst, releasing hundreds of new parasites that must find a new host within 48 hours or die. The free swimming stage is the only time the parasite is vulnerable to medication. Treatment requires understanding this life cycle. Raising temperature to 86 degrees speeds up the parasite's life cycle, forcing it through vulnerable stages faster. Salt can be effective in mild cases, but severe infections require medications like copper or malachite green. The entire treatment can take 2 weeks or more, and stopping early because the spots disappeared often results in reinfestation. Meanwhile, you must address whatever stress allowed the infection to take hold, or it will return. Velvet disease presents similar challenges, but is often more deadly than itch. The parasite Picenoidinium creates a golden or rust-colored dust on the fish's body. It's photosynthetic, using light for energy, which is why one treatment involves keeping the tank dark. Velvet spreads rapidly and can kill within days if untreated. Copper-based medications are most effective, but copper is toxic to plants and invertebrates and must be dosed carefully. Some strains of velvet have developed resistance to copper, requiring alternative treatments like chloroquine phosphate. Dropsy isn't actually a disease, but a symptom of organ failure, usually the kidneys. The characteristic pine cone appearance, scales standing out from the body, results from fluid accumulation in the body cavity. By the time dropsy is visible, significant internal damage has occurred. The underlying cause could be bacterial infection, parasites, tumors, or genetic defects. Treatment with antibiotics like kanamycin might help if caught early, but dropsy often indicates systemic failure that can't be reversed. This brings us to a difficult topic: euthanasia. Sometimes the kindest thing we can do for a suffering fish is to end its pain humanely. Clove oil is widely considered the most humane method. A solution of clove oil in water anesthetizes the fish, and a higher concentration causes death without pain. Freezing, despite being commonly recommended, is not humane. Ice crystals form in tissue before consciousness is lost. Physical methods like decapitation, while quick, are traumatic for both fish and keeper. The decision to euthanize is never easy, but prolonging suffering isn't kindness. Parasitic infections beyond ick and velvet are less common but can be devastating. Flukes, microscopic flatworms, attach to gills and skin, causing irritation and respiratory distress. Camelanus worms, visible as red threads protruding from the anus, require specific anti-parasitic medications like levamisole. Internal parasites might cause weight loss despite good appetite, requiring medicated food for treatment. Many parasites come from live foods or new fish, highlighting the importance of quarantine procedures. Fungal infections appear as cotton-like growths on fins, body, or mouth. True fungal infections are actually relatively rare. Many fungal infections are actually bacterial columnaries, which requires different treatment. Fungal infections typically follow injury or bacterial infection, attacking already damaged tissue. Antifungal medications containing malachite green or methylene blue can be effective, but addressing the underlying cause is crucial. Swim bladder disease, where fish struggle to maintain buoyancy, has multiple causes. Constipation from overfeeding or poor diet is most common and responds to fasting and dietary adjustment. Bacterial infections might require antibiotics. Genetic defects in fancy varieties with modified body shapes might not be treatable. Physical injury from fighting or sharp decorations can damage the swim bladder permanently. Each cause requires different treatment, making proper diagnosis essential. Tumors and cancers do occur in bettas, particularly in older fish or certain genetic lines. Some tumors are benign and fish can live normal lives with them. Others are aggressive and fatal. There's no effective treatment for most fish cancers, though some keepers have had tumors surgically removed by veterinarians specializing in fish. The incidence of tumors in certain color varieties, particularly solid black bettas, suggests genetic predisposition. Prevention strategies go beyond just maintaining water quality. Quarantine new fish for 2 to 4 weeks before adding them to established tanks. This allows time for diseases to manifest and prevents introducing pathogens to healthy fish. Observe fish daily during feeding, looking for changes in behavior, appetite, or appearance. Early detection makes treatment much more likely to succeed. Avoid cross-contamination between tanks. Use separate nets, siphons, and equipment for each tank, or disinfect between uses. Wash hands before and after tank maintenance. Don't share live foods between tanks without knowing their source. These practices prevent disease spread if one tank becomes infected. Nutrition plays a crucial role in disease resistance. Varied, high-quality diet provides vitamins and minerals necessary for immune function. Vitamin C is particularly important for disease resistance. Some keepers add garlic to food as an immune booster, though scientific evidence for its effectiveness is limited. Overfeeding weakens water quality and can cause internal problems, while underfeeding leaves fish without resources to fight infection. Hospital tanks are invaluable for treating sick fish. A simple setup, small tank, heater, air stone, and hiding places allows aggressive treatment without affecting other fish or beneficial bacteria. Keep the hospital tank cycled by feeding it ammonia when not in use, or be prepared for fish encycling during treatment. Some medications require carbon removal, some kill plants, some are toxic to invertebrates. A hospital tank eliminates these concerns. The name Siamese fighting fish has defined how we think about bettas for over a century. It conjures images of violent battles, torn fins, and fish that must live in solitary confinement. While male bettas are indeed aggressive toward each other, the full picture of betta social behavior is far more nuanced than their fighting reputation suggests. Understanding these social dynamics, what triggers aggression, what allows peaceful coexistence, and how bettas interact with other species, opens up possibilities for keeping bettas that go far beyond the isolated cup. Aggression in bettas isn't mindless violence. It's a complex behavior shaped by evolution, genetics, and environment. In the wild, male bettas establish territories of roughly 1 square meter during breeding season. These territories provide resources, food, shelter, and breeding sites. Fighting is expensive in evolutionary terms. Injuries reduce survival chances and breeding success. So bettas evolved an elaborate threat display system to avoid actual combat. The flare display is a masterpiece of intimidation. The male spreads every fin to maximum extent, erects his gill covers to appear larger, intensifies his colors, and performs a sideways shimmy that shows off his size and health. This display says, "I'm big, I'm healthy, I'm ready to fight if necessary, but wouldn't you rather just leave?" In the wild, these displays usually end with the weaker fish retreating. Actual fights occur only when fish are evenly matched, and neither will back down, or when escape isn't possible. This is why the pet store cup setup is so problematic. Males can see each other, but can't establish proper territories or retreat after displaying. They're in a constant state of stress, flaring repeatedly at neighbors they can't drive away. Some become habituated and stop responding, appearing calm but experiencing chronic stress. Others become hyperaggressive, flaring at anything that moves. Neither response is healthy or natural. The genetics of aggression vary significantly between lines. Fighting strains bred in Thailand show extreme aggression, attacking their own reflection for hours. Show strains bred for fin development might flare beautifully, but lack the stamina for extended displays. Pet store bettas are often genetic grab bags, showing unpredictable aggression levels. Interestingly, research has found that blue males tend to be more aggressive than red males, suggesting color genes and behavioral genes are linked. Female aggression is often overlooked but equally important to understand. While less intense than male aggression, females establish pecking orders and defend resources. In sororities, groups of female bettas, a dominance hierarchy forms through displays, chasing, and occasional nipping. Once established, these hierarchies can be stable for months. But introducing new females disrupts the balance, triggering renewed aggression as positions are re-established. Sororities require careful setup to succeed. 5 females is the minimum. Fewer allows bullying to focus on individuals. The tank must be at least 15 gallons, heavily planted with sight breaks and hiding spots. All females should be added simultaneously to prevent established fish from attacking newcomers. Even then, some groups never settle, requiring separation. Success depends on individual personalities, relative sizes, and environmental complexity. The community tank question, can bettas live with other fish, has a complex answer. Success depends on the betta's personality, the tank setup, and careful species selection. Some males coexist peacefully with appropriate tank mates, others attack anything that moves. There's no way to predict personality without trying, which is why backup plans are essential. Appropriate tank mates share several characteristics. They're peaceful, not fin nippers. They don't have long, flowing fins that might trigger aggression. They're not brightly colored, especially not red or blue. They occupy different water levels, avoiding the betta's surface territory. They're fast enough to escape if chased, but not so active that they stress the betta. It's a narrow set of criteria that eliminates many popular aquarium fish. Corydoras catfish make excellent tank mates, occupying the bottom while bettas patrol the top. Their armored bodies resist occasional nips, and their peaceful nature doesn't trigger aggression. Small rasboras like harlequins or lamb chops work well in groups, their schooling behavior and muted colors keeping them safe. Coolie loaches, with their eel-like bodies and nocturnal habits, rarely interact with bettas. Ember tetras, white cloud minnows, and celestial pearl danios can work in larger tanks. Inappropriate tank mates are unfortunately more common. Tiger barbs are notorious fin nippers that will shred a betta's fins. Fancy guppies, with their colorful, flowing fins, trigger aggressive responses. Angelfish compete for the same water column and can be aggressive themselves. Gouramis, being related to bettas, are seen as competitors. Chinese algae eaters become aggressive with age. Even seemingly harmless fish like neon tetras can nip fins in groups. Invertebrate tank mates offer interesting alternatives. Nearite snails are practically indestructible, ignoring aggression while cleaning algae. Mystery snails work similarly, though their long antennae sometimes attract nipping. Ghost shrimp can coexist with many bettas, though some individuals hunt them relentlessly. Cherry shrimp breed prolifically enough to maintain populations despite predation, creating a sustainable live food source. Amano shrimp are large enough to avoid predation, but might compete for food. The setup of a community tank is crucial for success. Larger tanks provide territories for everyone. 20 gallons or more is recommended for betta communities. Dense planting creates sight breaks and retreat spaces. Tall plants like vals or sagittaria divide territories vertically. Floating plants provide surface cover where bettas feel secure. Hardscape like driftwood and rocks creates defined spaces. Introduction. Order matters significantly. Adding the betta last allows other fish to establish territories first. If the betta is already present, rearranging decorations during introduction disrupts existing territories, reducing aggression. Some keepers use the cup method, floating the betta in a clear container for hours or days, allowing habituation without contact. Others prefer quick introduction with close monitoring, intervening if aggression occurs. Individual personality varies enormously among bettas. Some males are gentle giants, ignoring tank mates completely. Others are psychopaths, hunting down and killing anything in their tank. Most fall somewhere between, showing occasional chasing, but generally coexisting peacefully. Age affects temperament. Young bettas are often more aggressive, mellowing with maturity. Previous experience matters too. Bettas raised with other fish from youth are often more tolerant. The myth that bettas prefer solitude needs addressing. While they don't school like tetras or need companionship like social fish, bettas can benefit from appropriate tank mates. They show more natural behaviors, increased activity, and environmental enrichment from observing other fish. The key is ensuring the social environment enhances rather than stresses their lives. Territorial behavior extends beyond fish interactions. Bettas establish territories within their tanks, preferring certain areas for different activities. They might sleep in one corner, feed in another, and build bubble nests in a third. Rearranging decorations can trigger territorial reestablishment, causing temporary stress but also providing enrichment. Some keepers regularly rearrange tanks to prevent boredom. Mirror training deserves special mention. Showing a betta his reflection for 5 to 10 minutes daily can provide exercise and stimulation. The flaring response is a full-body workout, strengthening fins and maintaining muscle tone. But extended exposure causes stress, exhaustion, and potential immune suppression. Like any exercise, moderation is key. The pet store employee says bettas live 2 to 3 years. The care sheet mentions 3 to 5. Online forums claim 7 or 8. The oldest recorded betta allegedly lived to 10. So, what's the truth about betta lifespan and why such variation? The answer reveals uncomfortable truths about the pet trade, the importance of proper care, and the remarkable potential these fish have when their needs are truly met. Let's start with the harsh reality. Most bettas don't die of old age. They die from ammonia poisoning in uncycled bowls. They die from temperature shock in unheated tanks. They die from fungal infections in dirty water. They die from starvation when owners go on vacation without making arrangements. They die from dropsy caused by poor diet and chronic stress. When someone says their betta lived 2 years, they often think it died of old age when it actually died from accumulated husbandry failures. The natural lifespan of a well-cared-for betta is 5 to 7 years, with exceptional individuals reaching 8 to 10. This assumes proper nutrition, stable water conditions, appropriate temperature, and minimal stress throughout life. But here's the catch. By the time you buy a betta from a pet store, it's already 6 months to a year old. That seemingly young fish has already lived through breeding farms, wholesale facilities, shipping, and retail display. Each step involves stress, variable conditions, and potential exposure to pathogens. Understanding betta aging starts with understanding their life stages. From egg to free-swimming fry takes about 4 days. The first month involves rapid growth, developing from microscopic larvae to recognizable fish. By 2 months, fins begin showing sexual dimorphism. At 3 to 4 months, males develop full finnage and breeding readiness. This is when many reach pet stores, already young adults. Peak breeding occurs from 4 months to 1 year. Middle age spans 1 to 3 years. Senior status begins around 3 to 4 years, though healthy fish might not show significant aging until 5 or 6. The signs of aging in bettas are subtle at first, then increasingly obvious. Colors begin to fade. Not the sudden dulling that indicates illness, but gradual loss of vibrancy over months. Reds become rusty, blues turn grayish. Iridescence loses its metallic sheen. This isn't necessarily unhealthy. It's normal aging as pigment cells produce less color. Some bettas develop a brownish cast over their entire body, particularly noticeable in previously bright fish. Fin deterioration is another aging sign. Not the ragged edges of fin rot, but gradual shortening and curling. The fins might develop a translucent quality, becoming thinner and more fragile. Tail rays might curve or twist. The elaborate finnage that made the fish beautiful becomes a burden, dragging them down. Some senior bettas benefit from tail trimming, controversial but sometimes necessary when fins impede swimming. Body changes become apparent in senior bettas. The sleek torpedo shape of youth gives way to a slightly humped back. The belly might appear more distended, not from bloating, but from loss of muscle tone. Scales become more prominent, sometimes lifting slightly without the pine coning of dropsy. White spots resembling grains of salt might appear, not ick, but calcium deposits or benign tumors common in older fish. The betta might appear smaller overall, though they haven't actually shrunk. Loss of fin and muscle mass creates this illusion. Behavioral changes often precede physical ones. The hyperactive patrolling of youth gives way to longer rest periods. The betta might spend hours on a leaf near the surface rather than swimming. Bubble nest construction decreases or stops entirely. Flaring responses diminish. That fish in the mirror becomes less interesting. Feeding enthusiasm wanes. The excited dance at feeding time becomes a leisurely swim to the food. These aren't necessarily problems. They're adaptations to reduced energy. Senior bettas require modified care. Lower water levels help them reach the surface easier. 4 to 6 inches rather than full tanks, extra resting spots near the surface, broad leaves, betta hammocks, or floating logs become essential. Some keepers create stepped environments with platforms at various heights, allowing the fish to rest while moving upward. The goal is maintaining quality of life despite physical limitations. Feeding adjustments become necessary. Senior bettas might struggle with large pellets, requiring smaller foods or longer soaking times. Their metabolism slows, requiring less food despite owner inclinations to fatten them up. Constipation becomes more common, making easily digestible foods and occasional fasting more important. Some seniors develop preferences for certain foods, becoming picky eaters after years of accepting anything. Temperature management becomes more critical. Senior bettas are less tolerant of temperature fluctuations, requiring stable conditions. Some benefit from slightly warmer water, 80 to 82 degrees rather than 78. This higher temperature supports metabolism and immune function, but might also accelerate aging. It's a trade-off between comfort and longevity that each keeper must evaluate. Disease resistance decreases with age. The robust immune system of youth weakens, making seniors vulnerable to opportunistic infections. Fin rot that a young fish would shrug off becomes life-threatening. Parasites that were suppressed suddenly bloom. This doesn't mean constantly medicating seniors. That causes its own stress. Instead, it means maintaining pristine water conditions and monitoring closely for early intervention. The decision about tank mates becomes more complex with senior bettas. Some benefit from the stimulation of appropriate tank mates, maintaining activity and interest. Others find the competition stressful, preferring solitude in their golden years. Fast-moving tank mates that were fine in youth might become overwhelming. Some keepers move seniors to dedicated retirement tanks, optimized for comfort rather than display. End-of-life care is a topic many avoid, but all eventually face. Very old bettas might stop eating entirely, surviving weeks on body reserves. They might lie on their sides, breathing but not swimming. They might develop untreatable conditions like organ failure or aggressive tumors. The decision about when to euthanize is deeply personal. Some keepers provide hospice care, maintaining comfort until natural death. Others choose euthanasia when quality of life deteriorates significantly. The grief of losing a betta is real and valid. These aren't just fish, they're pets with personalities, individuals we've cared for across years. The betta that learned to eat from your hand, that built elaborate nests, that flared at the dog, that survived illness and thrived under your care, that's a relationship worth mourning. Don't let anyone diminish your grief because it was just a fish. But here's the positive side of aging bettas. Reaching old age means you've done something right. Every year past 3 is a testament to your care. That faded, raggedy senior betta is a badge of honor, proof that you provided what they needed, not just to survive, but to complete their natural lifespan. In a hobby where most bettas die young from preventable causes, an old betta is an achievement worth celebrating. The question of whether to get another betta after losing one is personal. Some keepers need time to grieve. Others find comfort in providing another fish with proper care. The knowledge gained from keeping one betta to old age makes you better prepared for the next. Each betta teaches us something about fish keeping, about commitment, about the responsibility we take on when we bring any animal into our homes. We've traveled from the rice paddies of Thailand to the genetic laboratories of modern breeders. We've explored the intricate biology of the labyrinth organ and the complex chemistry of aquarium water. We've witnessed the architectural marvel of bubble nest construction and the heartbreak of preventable diseases. We've challenged myths, revealed truths, and hopefully transformed how you think about these remarkable fish. But as we reach the end of this journey, we need to address what it really means to keep bettas in the 21st century. Every betta in every pet store cup represents a paradox. On one hand, they're testament to one of humanity's oldest relationships with ornamental fish, over 1,000 years of selection and care. On the other hand, they're victims of industrialized pet trade that prioritizes profit over welfare. They're simultaneously one of the hardiest fish available and one of the most commonly abused. They're living art that we've created and living beings that we too often fail. The transformation of wild betta splendens into the domestic betta fish is one of the most dramatic examples of artificial selection ever achieved. We've taken a modest brown fish and created living rainbows. We've extended fins to proportions that would be fatal in nature. We've selected for behaviors that serve our entertainment rather than the fish's survival. Every pet betta is a genetic artifact, shaped by human desires rather than natural pressures. This creation brings responsibility. We've made them dependent on us for survival in forms that nature never intended. The ethics of keeping bettas, or any pet, deserve serious consideration. These are sentient beings capable of stress, pain, and perhaps forms of suffering we don't fully understand. Recent research has shown that fish have cognitive abilities far beyond what we previously believed. They can recognize individual humans, learn complex tasks, and show preferences and personalities. They're not decorations or status symbols. They're living beings deserving of respect and proper care. Yet the reality of betta keeping often falls far short of this ideal. Walk into any pet store and you'll see the cups. Dozens or hundreds of bettas in containers barely larger than the fish themselves. The justification is always the same. They're temporary, bettas don't need much space, they breathe air anyway. But temporary becomes weeks or months. The stress is cumulative and often fatal. The message sent to customers is clear. These fish don't need much. They're basically disposable. Here's a bowl to keep one on your desk. This situation persists because we allow it. Every purchase of a betta from cups validates the system. Every bowl sold as a betta home perpetuates the myth. Every customer who doesn't question the care advice enables the continuation of inadequate standards. The pet industry responds to consumer demand. If we demanded better, they would have to provide better. Some stores have already moved to better betta displays, keeping them in filtered systems or larger containers. These changes happened because customers complained, boycotted, or took their business elsewhere. But individual responsibility goes beyond just where we shop. It's about the commitment we make when we bring a betta home. A 5 to 7 year lifespan means your betta might outlive your smartphone, your car lease, or your current relationship. Are you prepared for years of water changes, feeding schedules, and equipment maintenance? What happens when you move, go on vacation, or face financial hardship? These aren't hypothetical concerns. They're the realities that lead to bettas being flushed, abandoned, or neglected to death. The true cost of keeping a betta properly is often shocking to those expecting a cheap pet. A proper setup, adequate tank, filter, heater, decorations, and water testing supplies can easily exceed $100. Quality food, water conditioners, and medications add ongoing costs. Electricity for heating and lighting isn't free. When something breaks, and equipment always eventually fails, replacement costs hit unexpectedly. The $3 fish in the cup might represent a $300 commitment over its lifetime. Education is perhaps our most powerful tool for improving betta welfare. Every person who learns that bettas need heated, filtered tanks is one less customer for bowls. Every child who understands the nitrogen cycle won't unknowingly poison their fish with ammonia. Every store employee who receives proper training can guide customers toward appropriate setups. Knowledge spreads. One properly kept betta inspires others to improve their care. Social media has revolutionized betta keeping, for better and worse. Online communities share knowledge, troubleshoot problems, and support new keepers. Beautiful photos of well-kept bettas inspire better setups, but misinformation spreads just as quickly. Viral videos of bettas in inappropriate conditions normalize abuse. Influencers with no expertise give dangerous advice to thousands. The democratization of information means critical thinking becomes essential. Not all advice is good advice, even if it has millions of views. The role of breeders in shaping the future of bettas cannot be overstated. Ethical breeders work to maintain health alongside beauty, avoiding extreme traits that compromise welfare. They select for vitality, disease resistance, and appropriate finnage. They cull responsibly, maintaining quality over quantity. But market pressures push toward extremes: bigger fins, brighter colors, novel traits regardless of impact on the fish. Every purchase decision we make influences what breeders produce. Conservation might seem irrelevant when discussing domestic bettas, but wild betta splendens is listed as vulnerable by the IUCN. Habitat destruction, pollution, and collection for the pet trade threaten wild populations. The rice paddies that supported bettas for millennia are being converted to other uses or poisoned with pesticides. The genetic diversity of wild populations, the source material for future domestic development, is disappearing. Some breeders maintain wild-type lines, preserving genetics that might otherwise vanish. Supporting these conservation efforts connects our hobby to larger environmental concerns. The future of betta keeping depends on the choices we make today. Will we continue accepting inadequate standards because they're convenient? Will we prioritize beauty over welfare, creating ever more extreme varieties? Will we treat these fish as disposable decorations, or respect them as the complex organisms they are? Every keeper, breeder, retailer, and consumer has a role in answering these questions. Technology offers new possibilities for improving betta care. Automated water change systems reduce maintenance burden. Smart heaters maintain precise temperatures. Water quality monitors alert keepers to problems before they become critical. LED lights can simulate natural photo periods and even weather patterns. These advances make proper care easier, but they don't replace understanding and commitment. Legislation might eventually force improvements the market won't make voluntarily. Some countries already have minimum tank size requirements for fish. Others ban the sale of bowls as fish homes. Animal welfare laws increasingly recognize fish as sentient beings deserving protection. While legislation is a blunt tool that can't address every situation, it can establish minimum standards below which we collectively agree not to fall. The joy of keeping bettas properly is worth every challenge. Watching a betta explore a planted tank, building his first bubble nest, flaring at his reflection, or learning to eat from your hand. These moments make the effort worthwhile. The transformation of a pale, lethargic cup betta into a vibrant, active pet is deeply satisfying. The knowledge that you're providing a good life for a creature entirely dependent on your care brings a sense of responsibility and accomplishment. Each betta is an individual with its own personality, preferences, and quirks. Some are bold explorers, investigating every corner of their domain. Others are shy observers, watching the world from the safety of their plants. Some are architects, constantly building and rebuilding elaborate nests. Others are hunters, stalking every small movement with predatory focus. Getting to know your betta as an individual, not just a fish, transforms the keeping experience from maintenance to relationship. The lessons learned from keeping bettas extend beyond the aquarium. Patience as you wait for tanks to cycle or diseases to heal. Consistency in maintaining feeding and cleaning schedules. Observation, noticing subtle changes that indicate problems. Problem solving, diagnosing issues, and finding solutions. Responsibility, following through on a commitment even when it's inconvenient. These skills and values translate to other areas of life. Children who grow up keeping bettas properly learn empathy and responsibility. They understand that pets have needs that must be met regardless of convenience. They learn about ecology, chemistry, and biology through practical application. They experience the full cycle of life, from the excitement of a new pet through the challenges of illness to the grief of loss. These experiences shape character in ways that no classroom lesson can match. The community aspect of betta keeping provides connection in an increasingly isolated world. Local fish clubs bring together people who might never otherwise meet. Online forums create friendships across continents. The shared experience of keeping these fish creates common ground across cultural, economic, and social divides. In discussing the minutiae of water parameters or breeding results, we find human connection through our shared passion. As we close this documentary, I want to leave you with a challenge. If you currently keep bettas, honestly evaluate your setup and care. Are you meeting their needs, or just their minimum requirements for survival? If you're considering getting a betta, are you prepared for the real commitment involved? If you work in the pet industry, are you providing accurate information and appropriate supplies? If you're a content creator, are you showing responsible betta keeping or perpetuating harmful myths? The next time you see those cups in the pet store, remember everything you've learned. Remember the rice paddies stretching to the horizon. Remember the complexity of genetics that created those colors. Remember the intricate dance of breeding and the devotion of parental care. Remember that inside each cup is not just a fish, but a living being shaped by millions of years of evolution and thousands of years of human selection. Every betta deserves more than a cup. They deserve heated, filtered tanks with room to swim. They deserve stable water conditions and appropriate nutrition. They deserve environmental enrichment and, when appropriate, suitable companions. They deserve keepers who understand their needs and commit to meeting them. They deserve respect as the remarkable creatures they are. The story of betta fish is really the story of our relationship with the natural world. We've taken a wild animal and transformed it to suit our desires. We've created beauty at the cost of function. We've industrialized life for profit, but we also have the power to do better, to provide proper care, to demand higher standards, to treat these living artworks with the respect they deserve. Thank you for joining me on this journey through the world of betta fish. Whether you're a seasoned keeper or someone who just wanted to learn more, I hope this documentary has changed how you think about these remarkable fish. I hope it's challenged myths you might have believed. I hope it's inspired you to do better, expect better, and demand better for these fish. The betta in the cup at the pet store is waiting for someone who understands what they really need, waiting for a chance at the life they deserve, waiting for someone who sees not just their beauty, but their value as living beings. Perhaps that someone is you. Perhaps today is the day we start changing how bettas are kept. One fish, one tank, one keeper at a time. Remember, they're not just fish. They're bettas, and they deserve so much more than we've been giving them. We've spent the last hour exploring every aspect of betta fish care, from their origins in the vast rice paddies of Southeast Asia to the precise water chemistry needed in your home aquarium. We've debunked the dangerous myth that these fish can thrive in tiny bowls and revealed the truth, that with proper care, your betta can live 5, 7, even up to 10 years, becoming a true aquatic companion rather than a temporary decoration. Think about everything we've covered. The labyrinth organ that allows them to breathe air wasn't designed for surviving in cups, but for navigating their complex natural habitat. Those stunning colors and flowing fins we admire are the result of over 1,000 years of selective breeding, creating living art that depends entirely on us for survival. The bubble nests they build with such dedication show us that these aren't simple creatures, but complex beings with intricate behaviors and needs. We've learned that a proper betta setup isn't just a luxury, it's a necessity. A 5-gallon heated, filtered tank isn't excessive. It's the foundation for health and longevity. The nitrogen cycle isn't optional aquarium science. It's the difference between a thriving fish and one slowly poisoned by its own waste. Temperature control, proper nutrition, disease prevention. These aren't advanced techniques, but basic requirements for responsible betta keeping. The most important lesson from today is this: every choice we make affects these fish. When we buy bettas from cups, we vote for that system to continue. When we keep them in proper setups, we show others what's possible. When we share accurate information, we combat decades of myths and misinformation. Each of us has the power to improve life for these remarkable creatures, one betta at a time. If you found value in this documentary, please hit that like button. It helps more people discover accurate betta care information. Subscribe to the channel for more in-depth aquarium content and ring that notification bell so you don't miss future uploads. Share this video with anyone you know who keeps bettas or is thinking about getting one. The more people who understand proper betta care, the better life becomes for these fish. Most importantly, take action. If you have a betta in inadequate conditions, start planning their upgrade today. If you're thinking about getting a betta, set up their tank properly before bringing them home. If you see misinformation being spread, kindly share what you've learned. Be part of the solution, not the problem. Thank you for dedicating your time to learning about these incredible fish. Thank you for caring enough to watch this entire documentary. And thank you for being the kind of person who wants to do right by the animals in your care. Until next time, remember, they're not just fish. They're living beings that deserve our respect, our commitment, and our best efforts. Give your betta the life they deserve, and they'll reward you with years of beauty, personality, and companionship. This is the end of our documentary, but it's just the beginning of your journey toward better betta keeping. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.